All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Fnatic Play Heroes Cup number 2, the second edition here, and we are going to go ahead and get into it. This is the round of 64, so we do have two teams not particularly familiar with, as those things tend to happen here in the early rounds of these big open tournaments. A lot of big teams are signed up and registered, but, well, pardon me, alas, they do have buys in the first round, so the big teams that we recognize will be coming in the later rounds, but today we are going to start off with some teams that we do not know so well, so let's go ahead and introduce them. And over here on the Legion side, we do have, oh my gosh, Zignarmus. We're just going to go with ZNK over here on the Hellborn side, team F5, Faith 5. So F5 versus ZNK things to start things off today. So, like I said, still kind of new to the own 3D setup. I have my little broadcasting panel open, so hopefully everything's... I don't have a chat, which is kind of freaking me out a little bit, because I don't know... Usually I'm used to looking at chat to confirm or not confirm problems with the stream. So hopefully everything is all right. If there is an issue, tweet at me at ZyoriTV, or by all means let someone from Fnatic know, particularly Street, and he will be able to communicate with me to fix whatever issues we are having. The delay server is activated as well. 6-minute delay turned on per usual here. So let's go ahead and get into this game. Let's take a look at some of the bans here. Demented Shaman, Parasite, Magmus, Valkyrie, Pebbles, Magebane, Tundra, and Jeraziah. All pretty straightforward bans. I hate to say that, but it is so true here in this game. And I have to admit, a little bit disappointed to be solo casting today. I am flying solo here. Didn't really have anybody lined up. Kind of did this out on a whim. I needed someone to step in, so I hopped in to drive the Fnatic TV stream. Production will be relatively low. We don't have too many splash screens set up or anything. Like I said, kind of really a last-minute arrangement here. We got everything set up last night, so hopefully everything goes relatively smoothly. Again, this is only day 1 of the tournament. We're going after the round of 8 today. The semifinals will be tomorrow, and then I believe the grand finals, as well as the third place match, will be the following day. So 3 days here of prime content to come. And I'm not sure if anyone else is streaming as well. I'm not sure if players are streaming first person in the other matches, the other rounds that we're not covering. So I don't know where the other coverage is, but alas, there will be some here as well. If one of the bigger teams gets eliminated early on, we may have someone hop on as a guest for some of that competitive insight. I do have a couple people that said they'd be happy to if they weren't participating in the event. And that's kind of how those things work out. That's one of those things everyone keeps talking about, getting one of those competitive insight casters. Well, that's great, but when there's an open tournament and all of them are playing, it makes it a little bit more difficult. So that's sort of the conundrum we're stuck in here. As far as everything else, hopefully there should be in-game sounds. Let me double check now as I'm getting paranoid that there aren't any. Okay, there we go. So yeah, other than that, it should be all set. We should be in great shape here to get things going. There's Phil the Thrill with the global shout out. Sorry, I know I'm stammering a little bit to get things started. Just still trying to get my bearings here as I'm tabbed out working away. So let's take a look at some of these picks here. Of course, ZNK going to start off with that first pick. They do go with a Plague Rider first, and they are going to pick up a Zephyr here in this last round of picks. So they are Zephyr, Torturer, Plague Rider, and waiting on this one last pick here. So let's see what they grab. Of course, F5 going to have that luxury 10th pick. Over here on the Hellborn side, we do have Electrician, Silhouette, Keeper of the Forest, and Bubbles. Most notably here, that Silhouette, a hero that has been showing up quite a bit recently on the competitive scene. And damn, is she scary. There's a long time where I would struggle with what is she, a semi-carry, a hard carry, somewhere in the middle. I think she's pretty close to a hard carry. We've seen some games where she free farms and just gets out of control. Her burst damage early on is absolutely insane. Her map dominance with that ultimate, all very crazy. So this Hellborn team looks actually pretty nice for this Silhouette. They have a pretty well-rounded team. Of course, 2 great solos with that Electrician as well as Bubbles. So in that jungler with those 2 solo lanes, I think they're going to pick a nice support to lane with Silhouette. Andromeda would fit very, very nicely, I do believe. We'd see Andromeda at an increasing frequency as well. An interesting last pick for the Legion side, though. We do see Pandemonium being that last pick here. Just sort of an interesting selection. We really don't see Pandemonium all too frequently, though most notably he is being played by the highest PSR player here for this Legion side, which, you know, may prove to be somewhat meaningless, but you never know. Pandemonium can get a little bit out of control, though he is extraordinarily item dependent, which makes him a little bit more difficult. As far as utility is concerned, that ultimate really a little bit ineffective till he gets that shrunken head, at least, you know, in that kind of mid-game. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, crap. Forgot about Roar. So your game is going to start. Give me just one moment here, guys, and should be in good shape. Alrighty, here we are. So again, well, like I said, kind of lack of overlays today. Give me one moment. Okay, so sorry about that. Yeah, I had to take a quick call there. So here we go. So anyway, we are going to start up game number 1 here, of course, ZNK versus F5. It is, God. It's one of the things I don't like about solo casting is I don't like to sit on D&D if I don't have to, but you know, since I don't have chat to communicate with people, I'm hesitant to put on D&D, and then just in case we get lag issues or something, be talking to myself and no one has any clue what's going on, and then I'm stuck in the dark, which of course trying to avoid as well. So anyhow, I'm going to stay off D&D at the moment at least. Hopefully it doesn't get out of control. Anyway, we talked about the lanes here for this Legion side. Of course, the two great solos. They have Electrician in the mid. Bubble's going to be in that Suicide lane. Then up in the top, that Andro Silhouette with, of course, the Mother Nature Keeper going to be here in the jungle. No big surprise to this Legion side, though. How are they going to end up laning this? Going to have a Witch Slayer Zephyr lane down in the bottom. Looks like Torture Pandemonium going to be together at the moment, though. They will spread out. Looks like a solo Pandemonium in the mid lane here. It will be a Torturer Plague Rider lane in the top. So this is sort of an interesting play from our Legion side for a couple of reasons. Torturer Plague Rider is definitely not an orthodox lane by any means, and of course I think Torturer going to be the one picking up the farm up here, but the big thing with Torturer early on is picking up those levels. It's particularly powerful on a hero like Torturer, Pebbles, all these solo heroes that really benefit from experience more so than farm early on, so it'll be interesting to see how Torturer does with Plague Rider, especially up against this Silhouette Andromeda lane. This is a dangerous lane, one of the reasons why it works, it should work so well for F5, I should say. They have a double stun lane here, huge amount of damage output potential, and it's also that carry lane. So Torture and Plague Rider may find themselves in a little bit of trouble up here, especially Plague Rider. He may be picked on a bit. Of course, the lane control will sway in favor of the Legion side, so I'll have to keep pretty close tabs up on this top lane to see how that unfolds. You see the first little bit of harassment coming out on Plague Rider. No follow-up going to come, but still with that double stun, of course, the tree grapple, they can set up kills quite easily up here. That relentless salvo, not to be underestimated as well. In the mid lane, though, the Pandemonium versus Electrician, which is sort of interesting. Also, Electrician kind of regarded as one of the best solo heroes, especially against another melee. Take a look at that creep store. It's kind of on par, actually. Electrician really not dominating nearly as much as I would have thought, but we'll see. As time goes on here, that electric shield and energy absorption will prove to put out quite a bit of harassment. Everything looking good on stream, fantastic. That's exactly why I don't sit on D&D, exactly what I'm looking for. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy, at least semi-enjoy the solo casting to start things off here today. Like I said, after things you know, sort of continue here, we may try to bring on a co-caster as the tournament continues. Up in the top lane, though, Plague Rider going to be in big trouble, and the Vaginator goes down as the first kill here. Going to go out in favor of Silhouette. So we mentioned Silhouette, at least by my definition, a hard carry. Going to pick up that Bloodlust kill, certainly going to be very scary. For this Legion side, like I said, Plague Rider Torturer going to be really rough to go up against that double stun lane. Of course, with Keeper in the forest here, it's sort of a 3v2 lane, if you will. Keeper going to be able to have a pretty easy time in the jungle. One of the things we haven't touched on yet, of course, having that jungler does set you up for slightly more effective lanes. They're a little bit more efficient, a little bit more XP and gold to go around. Bubble seems to be doing a pretty good job down here in this solo lane. At least he is able to pick up a bit of experience. Sitting level 2 here, is going to sit 1-on-1 on creep kills. Zephyr sitting 18 and 12, so he is free farming his way to victory. Actually, way out farming that of Silhouette to pick up the Bloodlust kill. So that could be bad news bears for the Hellborn side as well. What's going to be interesting about the Zephyr Silhouette going head-to-head is they're going to peak at different times in this match. We're going to see that Zephyr kind of get out of control a little bit more early on. He's a little bit more of a mid-game carry that doesn't scale quite as well into that really super late game, not like Silhouette does at least. Silhouette Actually also going to peak fairly early as well, but she will scale slightly better than this Zephyr. So it's going to be sort of interesting to see who gets out of control first and how it ends up working out. We're going to see Electrician in the mid lane here in a bit of trouble. Witchslayer going to roam towards the mid. Are they going to be able to finish off this Electrician, though? Looks like Panda is going to dive the tower. It does have that haste rune on, and Electrician will not be able to survive. Trying to sip that bottle, but unfortunately not going to be enough. So that will level it out 1-1 here to make up for a pretty even game. Up in the top, though, the Andro Silhouette combo could be in some trouble. Andro is going to fall. Torture going to be the one to pick up that kill. Silhouette may actually be in a little bit of trouble here as well. No, she's going to hang around, though. Does have a potion, I hope? No, it does have a couple of tangos, though, so should be able to pop a couple of trees and go back up to an acceptable level of health. Kind of an interesting match so far. A little bit of aggression. 3 kills, 4 minutes in. No complaints on that front. In other farming news, though, in the bottom lane, I mean, Zephyr is just having such a good time, and that always makes me nervous. Having a much better time than Silhouette, as we see here in the at the GPM chart. Zephyr is really, he's pretty much just free farming. Bubbles is trying to do the best he can. I mean, Suicide Lane, you kind of expect that. It's really going to come down to this Keeper. Now, Keeper also does throw a wrench in the mix with that huge amount of pushing power he can put out. This Legion side does have plenty of anti-push, though, between Torturer with the chain reaction as well as the Agonizing Bonds, Witchslayer with his Sun, and Pandemonium with his Flurry. They have a nice bit of creep clearing potential. So that does actually counter Keeper a little bit, but a good Keeper will always find a way to push those towers. Pardon me. So that will sway a little bit of that mid-game in favor of the Hellborn side as well. So a lot of interesting facets to look at this game as far as hero picks. Some interesting lanes, but all things considered, looking fairly even to start things off. The Legion side pulling slightly ahead with that Zephyr kind of free farming. That is a little bit of a shame. I would have liked to see this top lane for the Hellborn side do a little bit better. I mentioned slightly more efficient lanes with that jungler. So, we would expect to see them ahead here on our team golden experience differential. Unfortunately, that is just not the case, which could spell to be slightly bad news for them. In the way of item choices here, still don't see too many crazy items. The Ring of the Teachers are out. There is one big difference, so we see this Legion team really lacking on the Ring of the Teachers, which is sort of interesting, as we're all pretty well aware, at least you should be by now, the most cost-effective item in the game. We see Bubbles has one, as does Silhouette up here in the top. It is so great for so many reasons. It's ridiculously cheap. That aura is applicable to so many units. It is just an absolutely all-around great item. We see down here in the mid, though, poor Electrician going to get taken out. Talked about that Pandemonium ult a little bit in the picking phase. And, it's not useless, but in the early levels, certainly great in a 2v1 scenario like that. But once the team fights start, the roaming, that laning phase kind of comes to a close, we're going to see Pandemonium struggle a little bit. That's the gap where Pandemonium is really not too effective. Sure, he can set up kills here and there, but he's very easy to interrupt and really needs that Shrunken Head as a core item. Here's the Keeper here, take a little bit of harassment. Of course, going to be able to Nature's Veil out. And he should be just fine. Keeper's been having a pretty good time in the jungle, so around 230 GPM, really not so bad. That's about where a Keeper should be at this point, given the lack of spawns that have been warded. Looks like he's going to come in here. Going to try and path block Torturer. Is he going to be able to do it? Yes, he is. Going to slow Torturer down quite a bit. Beautiful path blocking here from Keeper the Force. An uphill auto attack going to miss the Plague Rider, so they do have to commit more to that Plague Rider kill than they would have liked, and Torturer will have the opportunity to pop the potion and get away. So a very noble effort from Keeper the Force, but unfortunately they were not able to capitalize. Oh, darn that RNG, that uphill miss, kind of delaying the inevitable for Plague Rider, but securing the life of his good buddy Torturer. So I guess well played on both sides, you could say, but really well played by Keeper right there. Voodoo Jesper, that's an Voodoo Jester here on the Keeper the Forest, very nicely done. So he's still having a grand old time, as we noted. None of his spawns have been warded or anything like that, so he should be able to kind of free farm his way to victory. Just now hitting level 6 is about the time we should see start to expect at least Keeper the Forest to pop out of the jungle, try and set up some kills here and there, and push towers. Kind of when able, as we talked about those Ring of the Teachers, we'll see him turn those rings on and put some pressure on those towers, no doubt. Yeah, Ring of the Teacher, great, especially in that Suicide lane for a hero like Bubbles down there. That Ring of the Teacher is an absolute core, as we see him struggling a little bit against Zephyr. Not going to have that Shelf Surf for another couple seconds. He's going to be able to survive here in the top, and there we go. D&D, ooh, actually, / ignore, add team, no, like me. No, if I keep getting spam, we'll just turn on D&D, no problem at all. Yep, so anyhow, yeah, sorry, I totally lost my train of thought there. So I guess the spammer was successful in that regard. We are going to see Keeper the Force actually get taken out here in the mid. Oh, very unfortunate for them. Their pushing power kind of diminished early on. And that's one of the things I mentioned as well. With that jungler being Keeper of the Forest, they really put kind of a lot of emphasis on being able to push well and capitalizing on it. That's sort of one of the things that their team is based around. As we see Andromeda get picked off here by the Plague Rider Torturer combo. Pushing is a key element to their team. If they don't push towers early on, they're really going to be at a deficit. As we see here, about 2k golden experience, only 8 minutes in. Oh, definitely looking a little bit grim right there. But we'll see. We'll see. We will see indeed. So I have to admit, it's been a while since I solo casted. Like I said, hopefully it's not too painful. I know that lack of enthusiasm doesn't necessarily help, but it has been a while. I'm so used to having Breaky, and with the Breaky and I together, it's like both of us are used to talking so much. There's never any silence because we both have like 20% more to say than there's time for both of us to say. So it's like the complete opposite of right here, where I'm sort of like, all right, and now I pitch it over to my co-caster, who's gonna point out something interesting. Oh wait, pitching it to myself. All right. So anyhow, the point that I was making before I got sidetracked there, Keeper of the Forest really needs to start pushing these towers. About the 9-minute mark, would love to see one down already. Of course, not a huge deal. He still has quite a few core items to go before he becomes that huge pushing force that he can be, but they really need to get some of these towers down. That will start to thwart some of this huge disadvantage they're at right now. I mean, 10 minutes in, 2k golden experience is really quite significant, but we do see a potential team fight coming in up here. The Keeper of the Forest ulti going to be used to start things off. Plague Rider's going to fall. Torturer going to fall shortly after with the Kelp Field to shut him down. So some easy kills here for the Hellborn side. They're going to be able to push this tower, and that is what they needed to do. Group up, and now they're going to be able to get an easy peasy tier 1 tower. Now the real question is, will they continue pushing and try and pressure this tier 2 tower here in the top lane? Hopefully they do. One of the best things you can do in a situation like this is continue pushing, force the other team to react. Say, okay, you guys either need to waste your gold on ports, or you need to sack a tier 2 tower. And I guess I shouldn't say waste gold, because you really don't want to sacrifice a tier 2 tower 10 minutes in if they give this up. Not only giving the gold advantage to this Hellborn team, will also really severely reduce this Legion team's access points. And right here we see F5 with the right idea, going to pressure this tower, getting it down to about half health. Torture is going to respawn, Plague Rider's back as well, as we see Witch Slayers down here. There's that creep clearing potential that I was mentioning before. Going to take out all those tree babies pretty easily, but there it is. We're going to force Pandemonium to roam over. Zephyr going to pour it in, and now we see there's nothing they can do about it. They defended the tower, but there's not going to be any kind of retaliation. The Hellborn team going to be able to get away safe and sound, opening this window for Electrician to push this mid tier 1 tower. Very well executed by F5. And it kind of went exactly as they would have liked. Electrician's going to be able to pick up this tower kill here, no problem. And if all 5 of these Legion heroes continue pressuring this tier 1 in the top, he'll just be able to port up, and it'll be a 5v5 engage with the Legion team's defensive advantage, as they will have their tower. And I believe they have the glyph up as well. So this is actually going very nicely for them. Electrician also has the option to continue pushing, maybe able to pick up a second tier 2 tower here. And given that he doesn't have a Homecoming Stone, looks like that may be the right choice. Let's take a look up in the top lane here. Looks like we could see an engage begin. Zephyr getting very, very bold here. Going to be caught between the tower and his teammates. He's going to take a lot of unnecessary damage. There's the Kelp Field coming out from Bubbles. Zephyr going to throw the ultimate, not going to connect with a hell of a lot, and he is going to be in big trouble. There's the stun from Andro. You're going to see Silhouette get caught, though. Silhouette is going to get dropped. A bit of a bold position from Silhouette there. Unfortunately, Keeper just didn't have that Nature's Veil. He's going to throw the ult. Not going to have enough damage to finish off Zephyr by any means. We're going to see Torture now take a bit of damage. Hopefully they can pick up at least a kill or two here. This Hellborn team has a big opportunity. They need to capitalize. Bubbles not going to take the Shell Surf. Definitely could have picked up that kill on Torturer. Maybe even a bubble or a double tap onto Witch Slayer, but unfortunately, he is just not going to capitalize, so that could have gone much better for the Hellborn team. Could have gone much worse, though, but definitely a couple kills there they needed to capitalize on. This tier 2 tower in the mid, all the while, Electrician was putting some pressure on it, and it is dangerously low. Now actually in deny range, as we see that Hell Cannon take a few more shots down at it. Up here at the secret shop, he does clean it up a little bit. The Vaginator gets taken out by a Shell Surf. So I guess you could say well done by the Hellborn side cleaning that up. But, you know, Electrician taking this tower down, not going to deny it quite yet, but that is an easy push. I mean, they just run up and backdoor this bad boy pretty damn quick. Pardon me. Oh, gosh, I need a sip of coffee here. But now we can see exactly what I was talking about with this Hellborn side, why that pushing power is such an integral part to their team. Now they have a pretty nice gold lead set up for themselves. Of course, still an experience disadvantage, and that's where picking up some of those kills would have been absolutely huge. That would have skewed that disadvantage that they're at kind of more in their favor. We see Keeper now has transitioned into his Astrolabe straight out of that Ring of Sorcery. Again, not surprised whatsoever to see that. Pretty standard Keeper item these days, at least for pushing Keepers. I'd love to see him move into some Pleated Greaves and some Soul's Bulwark action. I think he is definitely going to need it here to continue pushing aggressively in this game. Pardon me. Other than that, not too much is unfolded here. We see actually nobody really just AFK free-throwing. Silhouette and Zephyr in this game, but both teams pretty heavily committed to these team fights. Silhouette may be better off to try and continue farming herself, but alas, they are going to have another team fight here. All 10 heroes grouped up in this top lane, and it looks like Legion's side wants to put some pressure on this tower. It looks like the mid-tier 2 actually did end up going down. It was denied, so ZNK opting to deny that tower and put a bit of counter pressure on themselves. We'll see how they end up engaging. His Keeper of the Forest does have that ultimate up, so he's going to be ready to drop that root at a moment's notice. Electrician going to get gusted in. Definitely not going to be the best target. There's the Keeper ulti. The Kelp Field going to come out. Torture is going to get dropped to start off the fight. Witch Slayer is going to get gripped by that Electrician, though now Electrician may have overcommitted a little bit. He's going to be in big trouble. Pandemonium going to go in. Not going to use that ultimate. Plague Rider will fall. Looks like the Hellborn team going to be able to clean this up pretty damn easily. We see Electrician in some trouble here. It is now a 5v2 situation, and there it is, a clean sweep, 5-0 exchange, the hat trick coming out in favor of Bubbles. Now this Hellborn team is looking very, very good. A huge lead, only 14 minutes in now, defending that push so easily. The big problem there, really just positioning. I mean, Keeper of the Forest threw an ulti. Didn't really look like the best ulti at first, but the team was there. The follow-up came. They were able to pick off Torturer, and this is part of the reason why you don't want to pub train this early on, especially when you have a Zephyr. I mean, they have an okay team for grouping up, but I think they may have been much better fought to try and stay spread out, put that Zephyr in a solo lane, let him capitalize. We have an open lane down here in the bottom. Zephyr could have been down there, free farming less, hitting those creeps to his heart's desire, maybe finish that Shaman's Headdress, shit, maybe even farm a fast Mock of Brilliance. Those are all options that were on the board here, and now they're really limited with what they can do. A huge disadvantage. It's really looking rough. This Legion side now, I don't know. We talked about Zephyr sort of peaking before Silhouette, and now that we see Zephyr really kind of falling off a little bit because of that engage, it's looking a little bit rough. You don't want Silhouette to be pulling ahead of Zephyr this early on, and we see by the GPM graph here, that is certainly the case. Silhouette now picking up a shield breaker as well, so going straight for that in-your-face glass cannon damage build. A little bit risky, but very, very powerful at the same time. Where Keeper of the Forest down here could be in a little bit of trouble. He's going to be able to Nature Veil right away. If they had a ward here, Pandemonium could have hopped in with that cannonball and actually ulted Keeper, and they probably could have set up a kill, but alas, the lack of vision will work against them here in this situation. So anyhow, Silhouette with this kind of risky item build here. Shieldbreaker is definitely not too risky, but it is Glass Cannon, so he's going to put out a lot of damage but have minimal survivability. The reason I use the word risky is because more often than not, and actually probably majority of the time, I'd say probably about 80% of the time, we see Silhouettes go for Nullstone first, pretty much regardless of the scenario, regardless of who they're up against, of single target abilities, just picking up that Nullstone for a little bit of survivability, some stats, a little bit of extra damage, but really that regeneration. It's such an effective farming tool, and Silhouette is a hero that has an okay sized mana pool and can really capitalize on using mana quite aggressively, so that Nullstone really works out to be a great, slightly defensive choice to start things off, and then it's so easy just to transition into a Geometer's Bane if you're against a very bursty team, maybe some magic armor, and then pick up that Shield Breaker, and sometimes even Shield Breaker after Portal Key if you really need that initiation. So going for Shield Breaker first, slightly unorthodox, but in this game probably going to work out very nicely for a couple of reasons. One, this Legion side very, very low on armor, so that's a great read from Silhouette. And two, because, well, she's going to be doing a hell of a lot of damage. We do see an engage commencing down here, though. Keeper of the Forest is going to be caught in a bad position. Not going to be able to get that ultimate off in time, so that is not so good for this Hellborn side. Witch Slayer is going to get taken out all the while, though. There's the ultimate from Pandemonium. It will come out, but the swap will interrupt it. So now Andromeda's on the run, but Andromeda is going to fall after a nice gust. Electrician is going to be able to survive, at least for now. It looks like he is going to be safe and sound. So the Hellborn team not quite getting the engage they're looking for. A nice Shell Surf from Bubbles will mitigate that cannonball coming out from Pandemonium. So it could have been a lot worse to the Hellborn side, though they do not finish off the tower. Seems that Keeper of the Forest ulti is the key for their initiation. They need that ulti to come out so they can drop all of that follow-up damage. Silhouette wasn't really there either, so that is something else to note about that engage as far as the Hellborn side not coming out ahead. We do see ZNK here continuing to push, though. Going to put some pressure on this tier 1 in the bottom. They really want these towers, and I have to say I think it's a little bit of a misplay. I think they'd be much better off having Zephyr farming. Maybe at this point they need to group up, but at least a few moments ago keeping that Zephyr farming would have been so important. Torturer going to get gripped by Electrician. Electrician is going to man up here. Keeper going to throw that ulti. Not going to connect with Torturer, but it will connect with Pandemonium, and it looks like that might be enough for them to set up a kill. The Cannonball going to come out, and, well, not going to be enough. So Veteran here is going to go down. We see Silhouette is going to man up over here on the right side. He's going to be able to pick up that kill onto Witch Slayer. Silhouette can use that ulti at the last second. Barely going to be able to survive here, but not for long. Zephyr going to come in and pick up that kill. We see Plague Rider, and Bubble's going to go 1 for 1, and it is now down to a 3v1 exchange. Zephyr going to be in big trouble, though. Down he goes. The 3v1 just too much for him to handle. So the second genocide of the match coming out here again in favor of the Hellborn side, and they're going to be able to continue expanding their lead here. They have taken out the tier 1 tower, and they are going to continue pressuring, going to move straight in to the tier 2 tower down here in the bottom lane. The last remaining outer tower for ZNK. Only 18 minutes in, they have now pushed 5 towers, going on 6. I think they're probably going to at least pressure this. Witch Slayer only level 5. Really not going to be able to do a hell of a lot to slow them down. Let's take a look at this GPM tab to see what's going on here. And, well, you see Zephyr's actually still maintaining a decent level of farm despite all of this grouping up. He has been able to pick up a kill or 2. That's 380 GPM is definitely not so bad. Again, with Silhouette up at that 400 mark is definitely a little bit scary. The other thing to note, although Zephyr is farming very well, compare the rest of the teams. Get rid of these top 2 and look at the rest of this graph. We see Electrician, Bubbles, and Keeper all farming above or around that 300 GPM mark. And if you look at the next 3 for the Legion side, Pandemonium and Torturer barely above 200, and then Plague Rider down, him and Witch Slayer both down around 100. Really spells out. One thing you can always look at is a failsafe where, well, let's compare the supports. Are supports struggling to barely be able to buy those wards, or do they have those core items? You know, have a little bit of experience, have some levels. As we see it, Andromeda definitely has that, so that is a good thing here for this Hellborn side. In curiosity, take a look at the damage breakdown tab. Bubbles leading the way, no big surprise there. All of that AoE magic damage adds up pretty damn quick. We see Keeper of the Forest on the run here, which are actually going to throw down a Ward of Rev, kind of an interesting choice there. And unfortunately going to be a little bit wasted at least. We will see Keeper of the Forest pick up that Illusion Rune, just kind of baiting around. And needs to be pretty careful here, though. Actually kind of manning up just a little bit. And it's actually really hard to see which one's a mirror image here with Keeper of the Forest. She's so green. These are slightly more green, but wow. And by the way, my absolute favorite skin right here, Mother Earth Keeper. The absolute best skin hero combination in the game, hands down. No competition. No competition. Other item choices, though, let's continue taking a look. Bubbles has now picked up his portal key, furthering that initiation power of this Hellborn team. Looks like Keeper of the Forest probably going to be pulling that gold for a portal key of his own, which I think is a really smart choice here. We talked in that right before that last fight about how important Keeper of the Forest getting that root off for initiation is, and portal key, of course, going to help that quite a bit. We're going to see Witch Slayer get taken out here. Keeper not going to KS it, going to allow Bubbles to pick up that kill. So a nice easy kill for the level 12 Bubbles, taking out the level 6 Witch Slayer. No big surprise there to see that being the case. To go back to this Shieldbreaker choice from Silhouette, though, she is sitting on level 3 Shieldbreaker already, now with a health tube, so probably going to be moving that into a Nullstone. That would be my guess, but we'll see what she ends up doing with the life tube. But I mentioned a lack of armor for this Legion team, which probably sounded a little bit strange given that there is a Plague Rider. Of course, Cursed Shield does add a nice armor buff to help mitigate some of the effectiveness of that Shieldbreaker, but alas, it's yet to be leveled up, so that's totally nullified right now. Plague Rider with 3 armor. We see Torturer here with 4.7 armor. Witch Slayer with 2.3 armor, Pandemonium with only 7, and then the one hero that they really need to worry about focusing, only 7 armor on Zephyr, so minus 6 armor on these heroes. That's going to be absolutely huge. We see with 7.7 armor, Zephyr sitting at 31.6% damage reduction. We're going to reduce that by a huge margin. He's going to have about 5% damage reduction. It's like a 25% physical damage buff that Silhouette's going to be putting out on Zephyr, the tanky hero on this Legion team. I mean, that's absolutely huge. That is so critical in this game. And we can observe this Legion side not picking up Plated Greaves. They don't have any Ring of the Teachers. Those are 2 items that really add up. The plus 3 armor aura from Ring of the Teacher, then the plus 2 armor applied to everyone in that vicinity from the Plated Greaves. So important in these team fights, that plus 5 armor on everyone really adds up quickly, especially once we see this curse shield leveled up from Plague Rider as he picks up a few more levels. All those things add up and are very, very important. So it's hard to say whether that's a good read from Silhouette or she was just going to go Shield Breaker anyway because it's a damn good item. Hard to say, but regardless, it was a good choice and is going to end up being a good read. But whoa, an interesting item pickup here from Electrician. He is going to go ahead and pick up that Icon of the Goddess, and there is only one thing that can mean we are going to see a goddamn Sackstone in this game, and that is going to be the first time I've seen a Sackstone in quite some while. I am so excited that that's the choice, and I'm so glad it's Electrician that's doing it. There are very select few heroes that you can get away with a Sackstone, where you can say, you know, Sackstone is okay, maybe, every once in a while in one situation. It's pretty highly regarded as one of the worst items in the game, amongst a few others. But Electrician is one such hero that's actually okay. On the three heroes that I would say Sackstone is viable in certain situations with the right amount of farm against the right heroes are Torturer, Defiler, and Electrician. All because they all really need to be tanky. They're all kind of in-your-face heroes. Torturer is pretty obvious. He needs a huge mana pool. And Electrician as well, a hero that really benefits from a big mana pool. We see that Electric Shield. It kind of acts as additional, well, it does act as additional survivability. His mana pool actually kind of works as a secondary HP pool. So the more mana you have, the more damage you can absorb. So Sackstone really works well on this hero. And I'm sure there are people in chat right now saying, yeah, or, you know, there's a couple of other heroes that could work on. You know, a couple others come to mind, but those are the three where I think it's, you know, in a serious kind of competitive game where it's most viable. Like I said, it's really not regarded as a popular item by any means. The other thing about Sackstone is timing is key. If you can get it very, very early on and you have a team that's really going to be able to pick up kills pretty easily, Sackstone works pretty nicely. It really does. Once you get those charges built up, it's an item that does scale. That's one thing that people seem to underestimate. As you build up charges, it adds to your maximum mana, adds to your maximum health, and also gives you regen on both fronts. Very, very important to note. So it actually is an item that does scale pretty nicely here. Which is one reason why I like it on Electrician, because one, it just benefits him, but he's not a hero that really dies too frequently, especially if he's tanky enough to get a freaking Sackstone. He's probably fairly tanky already, so he should be able to build up those charges pretty effectively. I mean, if you can get up to like 12 or 13 charges on that Sackstone, your regeneration is ridiculous. It's insane. It's absolutely absurd, and it's one of those sort of scaling things where, well, if you're able to get that many charges, you probably picked up quite a few kills. So you probably have a Behemoth Heart and a Portal Key and every other great item under the sun. So it's sort of a funky item, probably not the most cost-effective, but I'm glad we're seeing it here because that gives me an excuse to kind of rant about it and talk about it. And that's really not something I get the opportunity to do quite frequently. So at the very least, thank you to F5 and especially you, Mr. Hooven, for making that happen. Again, guys, this is the Fnatic. Actually, what is the official name of this tournament? The Fnatic Play Cup. I guess that's about right. I'm confusing it with the CSN Play Heroes Cup here. We're moving into a pause. That'll actually give me the opportunity to kind of tab out here and just look. The Fnatic Raid Call HoN Open number 2. So we don't even need to make it to play. Fnatic Play Raid Call HoN Open number 2. Something to that effect. That sounds pretty close to me. Sounds fairly accurate. So anyhow. That's it here. We're in the first round of 64. I'm Zyori. You can check me out at zyori.tv. Follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/ZyoriTV with the TV. And of course, follow at Fnatic. I think their global Twitter is just Fnatic. No Fnatic TV, just FNATIC. But of course, if you're watching this stream, you probably have figured that out by now. But regardless, the shameless plugs are there. Like I said, production kind of minimal today. Less than usual, I guess you could say. We didn't, kind of a last-minute operation here for me to drive this stream today. Breaky CPK is off today. He's actually out of the office, so that's why he's not casting with me, and I'm just flying solo today. Like I said at the very beginning, one of the things about that people have been saying, you know, there's a huge debate about casters all over the forums, all over that stuff. And a lot of people say, well, just get somebody with competitive insight, man. Everyone's all upset that Breaky and I cast together because we don't have competitive insight. But the problem is, to cover tournaments like this, one, you have to have a lot of free time. It's 1 in the afternoon where I live right now. So having a full-time job would directly conflict with what we're trying to accomplish here with this tournament. And also, everyone I asked if they wanted to co-cast was either not here today, you know, doing something with their job or school or what have you, or They're playing. It's an open tournament. Most of the best teams are competing in this tournament. They're not here in the first round because most of them have buys, but they're competing. So I did ask a couple of people, and, well, a couple of them said, sure, I'd love to, but we're playing, so sorry about that. Anyhow, today we are starting the round of 64, of course, and going up to the round of 8. So tomorrow will be the semifinals, and then I do believe the next day is the grand finals and the third place matchup. I'm about 99% sure on that. Like I said, between all the different tournaments, everyone has their own format, their own structure. It's hard to keep track of all of them. So I believe that's what Street told me earlier today. Though I have to admit, it all runs together. Plus, I've logged like 18 hours of Diablo 3 since it launched 30 hours ago. So I'm a little bit fried, feeling a little bit like jelly, but that's okay. Feeling good. Happy to commit my time to some D3. So, game progressing, though. We're out of the pause now, quite obviously. And let's take a look at what's going on here. See, where anytime there's a pause, I always get thrown off. I tend to get sidetracked and then just kind of forget where I was. Uh-oh, Keeper of the Forest going to walk right by a Ward of Rev. Oh, no, Keeper. And Zephyr doesn't throw the Gust. Oh, Zephyr, sometimes you got to just throw that blind Gust, buddy. Gust him back towards your Ward of Rev and let the rest of the team follow up and let one of your supports throw down another Rev to set up that kill. That was very, very unfortunate to see. They definitely could have picked up that kill on Keeper. And we see, who is playing their Keeper? Oh, yeah, their Voodoo Jesper here. He is really playing balls of the wall, and he is actually going to move into that build that I suggested quite a few minutes ago. Plated Greaves as well as Soul's Bulwark. So he is going to be that huge pushing power. Interesting that he has it set on defensive right now, but still that huge pushing power. Love to see him set it to negative. One mistake from this Legion team that we can see just by looking at the items is that they don't have a Soul's Bulwark. Pandemonium, probably one of the better heroes to pick it up, but as we mentioned, one of his problems is he needs those core items. He has that Shrunken Head now, so he has that main core item, but it's going to be a little while till he gets that Soul's Bulwark. And if this Hellborn team is paying close attention to the inventories of what ZNK is doing, they'll recognize that they have the Soul's Bulwark advantage right now, and that's really big. That puts a huge amount of tilt in their favor, especially given that Silhouette has a level 3 shield breaker this early on. We see Zephyr still not stacking any kind of armor, going to be moving straight into a Behemoth Heart. So they're going to be, Silhouette's going to have minus 11 armor on most of these heroes. That is absolutely huge. Pandemonium does have a Shrunken Head, will be able to get that ultimate off, but without that additional armor, he's only 8 armor. Minus 11 armor is going to be ridiculous. Into the negatives, it just gets worse from there. So, one mistake you could argue this Hellborn team is making right now is they're just not being aggressive enough. They have a huge window of opportunity that they could be capitalizing on, and instead they're sitting back farming. And it's not a huge mistake. It doesn't really matter that much because they're ahead by such a huge margin. Their carry is farming actually kind of on par with Zephyr. Zephyr's turned his farm around pretty nicely, but they're so far ahead they can afford to take this time and finish up some of those core items. We mentioned Keeper of the Forest items, Bubbles with 3k in the bank, the Sackstone now complete on Electrician, and we see Silhouette now with her Shrunken Head complete. Interesting that she finished the Sustainer but didn't opt to turn it into a Null Stone. I'll be curious to see how that ends up working out, if it just hangs out as a Sustainer for the regeneration or if she ends up transitioning into something else. But she has not finished that Shrunken Head, so perhaps that's what this Hellborn team is waiting for. Keeper of the Forest now with his Portal Key. With these core items, they're going to be really, really tilted for that set amount of time. And I hope they capitalize on it. They may not need to, but I really think they should. One of the other things about Zephyr, though, even though he's farming so nicely, he's on par with Silhouette, is the item choices. He's just going a very classic, very, very standard Zephyr tank build. This is the kind of build where if I was coaching someone on how to win TMM games, what to do when you're, or SMM games, when you're solo queuing with Zephyr, this is a classic failsafe build I would give somebody to go for here. Yeah, sure, pick up your Helm of the Black Legion, get your Ghost Marchers, you always want to carry a port and a power supply, go for your Shaman's Headdress, pick up a Barrier Idol if they have a lot of magic damage. We'll do the little check here, magic damage, magic. Alright, yeah, go for the Barrier Idol, great. That'll help your pushing, help your defending. No problem. Move straight, continuing on with that tank build. But you need to just be a little bit more adaptable at this level of play. We've talked about armor so much in this game. This Legion side needs to be a little bit more aware of their lack of armor right now. This is one of these classic situations of right when Shieldbreaker was switched to this, just a Warhammer and then the 3 recipes instead of the classic where it was 2 Warhammers and 1 recipe where it just starts at -6 armor instead of that sort of staggered tiered effect. Everyone was, oh, it's broken, this is totally broken, but that's because no one was countering it. No one was buying plated greaves. No one was buying armor items. People weren't just straight buying barbed armors because they needed base armor. And that's kind of what this team is going to do. Once we see this big fight commence, we're going to see how much damage Silhouette actually does. It'll be insane. We'll look at it and we'll see, wow, Zephyr has a Behemoth Heart, a Barrier Idol, and a Helm of the Black Legion. How did he die so fast? And it's just that lack of armor. So maybe I'm overemphasizing, harping on it a bit too much, but it's the big thing that keeps jumping out at me. Is like, all right, we're in that mid-game stagnant farm fest right now. This is pretty standard, but this is that time when you need to read your opponents and say, well, what are they doing? What items are they getting? In your mind, when you go into a game, you have kind of a build idea of what you want to do. You know, Electrician's thinking, all right, well, I kind of want to go Sackstone, but you always have to be ready to adapt it to that game. You never just want to say, well, this is my Zephyr build. Sure, this is your Zephyr build in X situation, but not every build is good against every lineup at every time in every hero situation. Do see Kongor under attempt here from the Hellborn team, and they are going to be able to pick it up. Looks like an unchecked Kongor kill. We do see ZNK is going to head over. They're going to throw that Ward of Sight, but it is going to come just a second too late. Kongor will fall. The token going to fall into the hands of Silhouette, and it looks like we could see that team fight commence pretty quickly here. The Hellborn side, they do not need to wait for much more. They still have this huge lead. They've been farming the map a little bit more effectively. They have all of those core items. Andromeda even has a portal key now. I'm not sure what else they'll be waiting for, and it looks like they are going to group up here, finish this last outer tower, and then put the pressure on. This one Ward of Sight just about to time out. We'll give the Legion team some intel here, let them know that they're coming, and they'll also be able to get a glimpse of those inventories and see what everyone is packing right now. And this tower going to fall very easily. A smart play from ZNK not to even defend this tower. They're going to sack it and turtle up in the base. Very, very smart choice here. Much easier to defend that base tower than the tier 2, especially down in the bottom lane, and especially when they don't have a ward up on the plateau. That makes things very, very different, very difficult in that regard. So we'll see if this engage commences here. It is going to be a little bit difficult. My coffee's getting cold. So normally when there's a co-cast, I can sip coffee in between thoughts, but when I'm talking the whole time, I don't get that opportunity. Very unfortunate. Anyhow, this is kind of an interesting conundrum, something that we see quite often in the competitive scene, where one team has a huge lead. 17k golden experience is absolutely huge, but they still can't push into the base. That defender's advantage is very real. They have the hill advantage, so that's 50% miss attacks, and also that tower going to be doing a lot of damage, adding that DPS. So you really don't want to engage a straight up 5v5 fight into that tower unless you have some sort of way to set it up into your advantage. Even though this Hellborn team has a huge advantage, they still can't really engage to that, at least not safely. They could engage into it, try and drag them out, and possibly come out on top, but it's very, very risky, and that's definitely the reason why we saw them back up there. And probably rightly so. Probably the smart play. Anyhow, so how do we get around that? You know, we just talked about, well, all right, they have a huge lead. You know, they're farming nicely. They don't really need to be farming here for the next 30 minutes. So what do? They just need to get some wards up. And we see they put a ward up here on this plateau. Absolutely smart play. If you're going to push that bottom lane, gives you great sight. But also, if they can catch somebody jungling with creeps here, maybe catching somebody running around, if they can pick somebody off, then you can engage that uphill battle with the defender's advantage. A 4v5 in that situation totally changes the state of the game. So that's really what they're going to be looking for here. Keep farming, keep stacking ancients, moving around the map, staying active, continuing to pick up those items. We're looking for those opportunities, and if they can pick somebody off, go for it, and then push the base. Because one of two things is going to happen. They're either going to force a buyback on a valuable hero, or they're going to be able to pick up racks. Either way, it's a win for this Hellborn side. So they just have to be very, very mindful. I'd love to see them put a few more wards up right now. They only have that one ward up down here, and I would like to see a couple more. Oh, they do have one here. Okay, mini-map. Look at that on the mini-map. Covering it up, you can't even see the red ward. That's really kind of irritating, but you know, maybe get a few more up, maybe put one on this plateau as well. I think they should definitely try and get one up on the Ancients here. That is such a great spot to ward this little lip. It gives you sight of the rune, a huge access point, but also the Ancients, and that's one of the spots where we see games turn. Someone just casually killing a couple of Ancients, and lo and behold, they get ganked sort of out of nowhere. Especially with all this initiation, the Hellborn team, I mean, they have 3 freaking portal keys. They have initiation out the wazoo. They can hop on anybody who's caught remotely out of position very, very easily. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Silhouette pick up a portal key if this game goes on long enough, especially after that tokens bring. We do see she has picked up that Nullstone now, so an interesting order of item choices, but all things considered, kind of on par. In the mid, though, we are going to see somewhat of an engage commence, and it is not looking good for the Hellborn side. I was tunnel visioning too much on items and not the minimap, and we see this is not looking good. Both Keeper and Andromeda have gone down. Bubble's going to fall as well. I'm not sure what that was. I have to admit, I was caught totally off guard. All that stuff I was just saying about what they should be doing and how they're doing it right, throw it out the window, because that was the complete opposite of what I wanted to do, and I'm really embarrassed that I missed the beginning of that engage. Silhouette was on the same line of logic as I was, looking at Silhouette's item. She's off in the middle of nowhere. I can only imagine their Skype call is just, well, what are you guys doing? I wasn't ready. And Silhouette now will be able to go up top here and continue farming. They need that Silhouette. I mean, obviously they can't really engage without Silhouette, especially given that she's the one with the token. It does have 2.5 minutes left on it, so they do have plenty of time, but you know, their lead is slowly closing here, slowly getting less and less effective. Conceding those 2 kills did put a nice dent in their experience lead. We'll see the Legion team pick up a tier 1 tower here in the mid and going to continue pressuring for a tier 2 tower. It does look like 4 of them grouped up. We see Pandemonium actually not with the crew. So we'll see. It looks like they're not going to be able to pressure this tower. One of the problems with a team like this on the Legion side is they just don't have that pushing power. I mean, they do have a Torturer with Impalement, but of course, that Impalement was nerfed to towers in a pretty recent patch. I believe it was 2 weeks ago now. 50% less damage to towers than it does to everything else. So that pushing power isn't quite there. And that's one of the issues with Pandemonium as well. He's one of these heroes that can't really carry and doesn't have a huge amount of utility. One thing he does provide utility for, though, is that his stuns go through Shrunken Head. They are physical stuns, not magical stuns. So that's very important to point out. He does counter heroes like Tempest, who really need that Shrunken Head to survive and get their channeling off. We don't really see that here on the Hellborn side. I mean, Silhouette does have a Shrunken Head, but you know, it's not the same thing as like a Tempest with a Shrunken Head, obviously. But that is one piece of utility that Pandemonium does bring to the field, but he doesn't bring that pushing power. Imagine if they had a Tempest instead of a Pandemonium here. You know, that would have been this would be a much different game. They'd have that pushing power. They'd have that huge ultimate. You know, I actually can't remember if Tempest was banned here. We can actually pull it up and take a look. No, Tempest was not banned, and Tempest was not picked up here. That is really, really surprising, actually, to see that be the case, because Tempest is such a strong hero. It is absolutely absurd. So I'm actually a little bit shocked to see a hero like Pandemonium picked up while Tempest is still on the board. But, you know, what are you going to do? So anyhow, definitely become more of a slow game here. Started off very action-packed, but we have moved into this stagnant farm fest where neither team can really push too easily, can really capitalize. I still think this Hellborn team could afford to be much more aggressive than they're being. Perhaps they just don't really feel how powerful of a lead they have right now. They're looking at this Zephyr saying, well, Zephyr's level 20, he's pretty farmed. Yeah, but he's the only one. They have so many squishy heroes here that they can just pick off to start off this fight. Yeah, I don't know. I really just think that they can really afford to be more aggressive. Get some more wards up in the jungle here. We see their Plateau ward was counter-warded, but looks like that opportunity is going to come, and Plague Rider will throw that ultimate. Nice take cover from Bubbles. They're going to throw down a counter ward here as well. So although it is only Plague Rider, one of the weaker heroes here on the Legion side, the ultimate was burned, so the 5v4 should provide the adequate opportunity for them, pardon me, to pressure this base tower finally. Pandemonium now has the Soul's Bulwark, so again, that window that we talked about is totally closed. The Soul's Bulwarks counter each other out. We see the Hellflower now picked up for Bubbles, so that's a nice item pickup to help slow down that Zephyr. Actually, a nice counter to Zephyr as well. It will prevent Zephyr from healing while silenced. So that is huge. The Hellborn team's still not going to pressure. They're not going to push this lane, and Plague Rider is going to respawn. That ultimate is on cooldown as well, so that is another potential opportunity, but still just so passive. This Hellborn team playing way too timid. The token on Silhouette has now expired, and I feel bad pointing out negatives more than positives, but that just has to feel like a mistake. Silhouette, so powerful. I mean, she's on par with Zephyr here, picking up that Shield Breaker. Shield Breaker is an item that the longer the game goes on, the less effective it's going to be. All of these heroes, as they level up, have just static stat gain. So that's slowly going to increase their agility over time and slowly going to make them less vulnerable to a Shield Breaker. You know, we see even Witchslayer here, who had only 2 armor earlier on, now up to 6. Torturer up to 9. Plague Rider up to 4. Still not very much, but the point is, slowly but surely, the scaling effects of this Shield Breaker are not going to be there. So they're slowly losing that window, you know, especially if Pandemonium takes this Souls and puts it on positive, which it's kind of a toss-up, because he does a lot of physical. maybe toggle it in the fight, but still, you know, there's some added armor there. Still think, and there you go. I was going to say, I still think they should pick up a Ring of the Teacher. Witch Slayer's now picked up a Ring of the Teacher. That's going to add to all that stuff. We see Zephyr now, well, has a Maca Brilliance, so we can, that actually gives us something else interesting to talk about here. We talk about Maca Brilliance on Zephyr, and it's interesting for kind of an array of different reasons. The first reason it's interesting is it's kind of late in this game. I think you picked it up about 2 minutes ago, so around a 40-minute Maca Brilliance is notably late. You know, you usually don't see players picking up mocks that late, but while we're going to hold that bit of theory crafting, as Zephyr is going to get caught, and he's going to get melted. That's exactly what I was talking about. Look how fast he went down. Keeper of the Forest is going to come in. We'll throw an ultimate on the Torturer, but of course she will be able to shrink and head her way out. Now, I hope this Hellborn team puts some pressure on here. We see Zephyr does not have enough money for a buyback. He is going to be dead for 70 seconds, and that is the opportunity they were waiting for. They should be able to get barracks here very, very easily. They have, the Legion team has so many eggs in the Zephyr basket. Look at that farm difference. Again, get rid of the top two heroes, and you still have this Hellborn team that's vastly ahead. They're going to be able to delay this push, maybe pick up a kill, but it's not going to be enough. I think they are going to lose barracks. And just look how fast Silhouette is cutting through this team. Both Torture and Witch Slayer getting dropped in just a matter of seconds. Pandemonium going to use that shrunken head, but not going to be able to do anything. The tower is going to fall. Now the exposed barracks is going to take a lot of damage as well. And alas, they shall fall. Zephyr's still dead for another 30 seconds, and they have this window of opportunity here. They may be able to just move down and put some pressure on this bottom base tower. If they can even just take out the tower, that would be absolutely huge. Exposed racks are pretty damn easy to push. They have another 15 seconds or so, and they should be able to make it happen. They are going to wait for the creeps a little bit, which is sort of an interesting choice as well. Backdooring really isn't as much of a hot button issue as it used to be, so certainly no rules against it here in this game. But there's creeps in the base regardless. I could have just gone straight for it. It doesn't really seem to matter, though. I shouldn't be too eager to fault them. The tower does fall. The exposed rack's going to take a lot of damage. Pandemonium going to blink in. Nice play from Hooven to avoid the stun and then turn it around on the grip. Zephyr going to throw that ultimate. Both barrier idols going to be used here, and it looks like Zephyr is going to get melted yet again. We see Silhouette just pounding into Zephyr, doing so much damage. He's so tanky, but without that armor, it just doesn't matter. Torturer with a shrunken head doesn't do jack shit against the effects of Silhouette here, and the vote to concede has come out, and there it is, the GG. Well played. So we do see F5, our Hellborn team, successful with Silhouette and gonna pull out the win after 42 minutes. So we're gonna move on to the round of 32.
5 kills.